Woo-hoo! Woo! Thank you. It's great to be here with you. They wanted to have someone with a little more gray up here to talk about wisdom, because we know that this stuff costs you. If you go in gray, it's cost you to get there. And so hopefully I'll have a couple things that might be helpful for you along the way. There's different milestones that happen in a person's life. And maybe you can think about some of those. You get married, you have kids, you do these different things. But one of those is when you turn 16. What happens when you turn 16? Driver's license. Somebody said, Keenson, I think that's 15. I don't know. I didn't have one. You get your driver's license. And it is like awesome. I remember that day. I turned 16. I woke up. And it's first come, first serve at the DMV where I grew up, and so I immediately jumped in the car and drove to the DMV by myself. I'd been driving for a couple of years, so it wasn't a big deal. And got to the DMV, took the test. They give you a test because they want to make sure you have some amount of skill to get the driver's license. Obviously, that is a very low bar. You see a lot of drivers out there, but I got my driver's license, and it was a big deal. Why? Because it's a life or death thing. It's like couple thousand pounds of metal with an engine and a gas pedal and a 16-year-old where all the receptor sites are not connected yet in the brain, and you've got this weapon, and it's life or death. Another one of those memorable, rites of passage kinds of things for me was when I turned 13. I went and bought a new shotgun. And where I grew up, that was not uncommon to have a kid riding a Stingray down the street with a shotgun. What could go wrong? And we would go duck hunting down at the river. So I went to go pick up my new shotgun, and they said, you need to take the hunter safety course before we can give you the gun. The hunter safety course? I'm 13. Come on. They wanted to make sure that you didn't, talk with your hands while you were holding the shotgun, stuff like that. So I get this shotgun. It was rite of passage, and why did they want me to take this test? Because it's a life or death deal. It's a life or death deal. You got to make sure you know how to handle it. Well, we've all been given a weapon. Everyone's issued one. It's called the tongue. And it's a life or death deal. Maybe not physically, but it can either produce life or it can produce death to the heart and to the soul. And so we have to understand that using that is profoundly important, how we go about it. Because you're going to set an environment in your life of peace, of joy, of acceptance, of forgiveness. All those things have a great deal to do with how you use this weapon or this tool called the tongue. My wife asked me, she said, well, what are you going to be talking about this weekend? I said, well, I'm going to be talking about being careful and wise with our words. And she looked at me and went, And I'm like, what? Nothing, whatever, okay. It was very painful moment. Well, why would she, have that look and maybe respond that way? Well, because I'm a fellow struggler on this particular topic. Because, with my ADD, I tend to just, say things. And, something shiny goes by and I follow it verbally. And so I've got to learn also to be very careful with this particular topic because you don't get a license for this. There's no Department of Motor Mouths where you could take a test or even get recertified from time to time. No, it's on-the-job training. And sometimes we've learned how to use this weapon in ways that are very negative. And sometimes we have hurts in our own heart that cause us to react and to say things that are hurtful. It's a life or death kind of deal. So as a fellow struggler, let's read this first verse on our outline, Proverbs 18:21. And we do this with our outside voices, and everybody joins in, so don't let me down. Ready? Go. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. If you learn how to use it properly, it's going to have benefits. It is going to pay dividends if we learn to use our words carefully. We're setting an environment. And when we're careless with our words, we can do damage to the people that we love, to the people that we just bump into. You can crush someone's spirit. You can step on someone's dream. You can cause some great damage. Matter of fact, you can even cause resentment in a heart that can go on for years. You can cause fear to grow even in the people that you love by the words that you use and how you use them. So you're setting an atmosphere. Or the words that you use can be life-giving. You can help someone who's lonely feel connected and loved. You can help someone who is about to make a bad decision. With the right words, you might give them some wisdom and they could change course. Your words could bring someone that feels like they're ready to give up to have a bit of hope. Though your words are that powerful. Now, I'm not a big phone talker. You know, when I'm on the phone, I would rather have bullet points than paragraphs. You know, like, let's get to it. Let's just, we get through this thing and then we go to the next thing. So let's just make up a story. Say I'm involved in a project and my wife, Carmen, gives me a call. And it might go something like this. Hey, how are you? Just wanted to call and say hi. Is everything good? Yep, good. And then it's, well, we went to lunch and Cindy had this and I had the most wonderful salad. And I'm going, come on, let's move this along. Good, yeah, fine, super. And maybe something like this could be said to me at this point, if this ever actually occurred. Well, you know what? If you don't have time to take my call, don't take it. I don't want to feel like I'm an interruption. Whatever, So, you set an environment and an atmosphere, not just with your words, but your tone. It's all part of that communication process. And so we need to handle it really carefully because they have this power of life and death. And so I want to talk about how to be word wise. And I want to look at 6 examples. If you're taking notes, jot this one down. First of all, be slow. This isn't about your IQ. This is about slowing down your response time when you're using words. I tend to process my thinking out loud. And so that can get you in all kinds of trouble. Now, there's other people who they process internally and consider that. And so, I don't really know how you do that, but congratulations, because you're going to have a better, easier time actually doing this slow down thing. You're going, yeah, this makes sense. I get it. Well, Proverbs 29:20 says this, do you see someone who speaks in haste? There is more hope for a fool than for Mike. And you can just put your own name into any of these verses today as you feel it's appropriate, or if there's someone sitting next to you that needs their name put in, you might just go ahead and give them an elbow, help them go, yeah, that's you, that's you. This whole communication thing is just packed with trouble. Whether it's a one-on-one conversation, you can say something that you wished you hadn't said, or I've been doing this for like 40 years. So I have caused all kinds of havoc with things that I've said. And I didn't mean to say it. And it came out in a way, oh my gosh, did I actually just say that? So let me give you an example of somebody else who said something. A friend of mine, he was speaking at church, and he's, kind of a Pentecostal sort of guy, preacher, and he was preaching away, talking about this section of Scripture where Abraham and his nephew Lot divide up, okay, here's the land we're going to take over. And it says that, that his nephew Lot made his encampment outside Sodom. It's a terrible city. And the way he said it, though, was this, because he was preaching, it was getting towards the end of the sermon, he was making his point, and he used this section of Scripture from a more King Jamesy version of the Bible, and he said, and Lot pinched his tits towards Sodom. Yeah, like, no. Pitched his tents is what he meant to say. Just a small error, Well, people just lost it. They just lost it, and finally he just said, dismiss the services, I'll try again next week, Have a good day. Not good. Well, one of mine was, hadn't been speaking a lot at this point. I'm a young guy, and I decided, well, I'll tell this story of wrestling, because I was a bit of an athlete. And so I was wrestling 98-pound weight division as a freshman. Didn't date a lot. You want to go out with me? So, we got issued our wrestling uniforms like before the first match. And I'm the only one that has like a baggy uniform because I've got these 2 sticks they call legs, and it's just all loose and it wasn't fitting right. And so I'm sitting on the bench in the locker room, and my friend says, "Time to go." And he goes, I can't go out. This thing is all wrong. And look at this. And he turns and looks at me, "Dude, you got the top on backwards," because it was like going like around. And so I got that turned around, and that was better. And I go out there, and my first match, I'm going to wrestle. And the guy I'm going to wrestle from the other school, he steps out, and my friends that are in the stands start laughing, and they're going, "You're going to die," and really encouraging. And this guy, though, was like way shorter than me, and I was not big, but he was like, and I'm like this little kid in this baggy suit thing and not feeling very confident. My friends are laughing, and this guy looks like the Tasmanian devil. He's got like a 5 o'clock shadow. And what I said on that Sunday morning was, and I was still several years from any pubic hair. And I just keep talking, and people are like going, "Whoa, did you really just, wow, that was bold, And I realized, and I stopped and said, "I meant to say facial hair." And, it's just one of those things, it's like stuff comes out and you regret it. And for years I had people, going, "So, hey, how's that coming along?" Wise people recognize the challenge of communication, and they slow down. And if you do that, it'll lead right into what can happen next. Be humble. You slow down and you begin to realize, this communication thing is trouble, and I really want to be careful. So I want to start with a little humility. Now, if you're a Jesus follower, I encourage you to pray. But whether you're a Jesus follower or not, this stuff is important. And anyone can benefit from the wisdom of Proverbs, especially when it comes to this really important topic of how we use our words. It's good for peasants or politicians, and no group does it well. We have to practice it. It takes work, and it begins with a little bit of humility. James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Ask. God's saying, I'll help you. Just include me in this process. That's all part of this relationship that we're learning to walk in and grow in. God, help me in this conversation that's coming up. I'm not quite sure what to say. Help me to say this in a way that it can be received, that there's not a wall. Help me to say it in a way that actually builds and helps. I'm not sure how to do that, but God, help me. There's a great example of it in the Old Testament, the book of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah is an exile in Babylon. He's risen to an important position in the court of the king of Babylon. And he finds out that Jerusalem is in ruins and that the people that remain behind there are just being harassed. They're in poverty, and he's just hurting for his countrymen and for his city, his hometown. And so he's just heavy-hearted about this, and now he has to go in to the king's presence. Well, it was a capital offense to be sad in front of the king. Like you could die. And so he's trying to not, wear this emotion on his sleeve, but he can't help himself. And basically what the king says is, "What's wrong?" And because they're not married, he can't say nothing. And just thought I'd throw that in. Anyway, well, look what it says in Nehemiah 2. The king said to me, "What is it you want?" And then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king. I prayed, and then I answered. I was careful. And what happens in that book, and it's a beautiful, beautiful story about how the king helped him to accomplish some really cool things in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Well, if you've ever walked into like a difficult conversation, you really want to think about it before you walk in. I heard a sermon as a fairly new Christian about this tax collector who has a dinner for Jesus, and during the dinner, the tax collector stands up and says, "And I'm going to repay everybody I stole from." And it's like, way to go, that's good. And so I got through that and thought, that's really good. I was at this point 18 years old, and I had a job as a bellboy at the Holiday Inn. And I, had, before coming to Christ, I had maybe stolen some towels and sheets and pillowcases and was giving them away to my friends. Everybody was drying off on Holiday Inn, And so I now have to go and I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, I'm really sorry about that. But I had this idea. I wonder if I should go and talk to my manager and tell him what I'd done. And I'm thinking, is this like the Lord leading me? And I thought, no, silly Jesus. He wouldn't want me to do that. And so I'll just be really sorry about it and not do it again. Me and you, Jesus, we got this. No more stealing. All right. But it was just like right there. And I thought, I got to do this. And so I asked to speak with the manager. The manager's name was Tex Hager. And he was like 5'6" in every direction. And just this like fire hydrant guy. And he was also the local boxing promoter. And so his nose was just like all over his face from just getting too many blows there. And just this tough guy. And he always had a cigar in his mouth. That was back when secondhand smoke was good for you. And so he's smoking a cigar, the stub of the cigar, and it's just going back and forth across it. What do you want? I said, well, Mr. Hager, I just want you to know that a few months ago, I gave my heart to Jesus. And he goes, why the hell do I care? And anyway, I made some changes, and I just want to tell you that, I'm really sorry, but I stole some towels and sheets and pillowcases, and I've been giving them to my friends, and I'm really sorry, and it won't happen again, but I wanted to tell you the truth, because I'm following Jesus. And it was just like silence. And I'm just standing there, in front of this desk, and the cigar is just going back and forth, and he's looking at me, and the silence was just building, and because I processed out loud, I said, well, do you want me to get all that stuff and bring it back? He goes, no, not if you dirty hippie friends have been using it. And silence again, silence. Well, am I fired? He goes, oh, hell no, you're probably the only one I can trust around here now. and I got a raise and a promotion. Now, just in case, if you've been stealing at work and you take this talk and you decide, I need to go do that, and you get fired, don't call me, okay? You are on your own on this whole thing. So just understand that when you go into a conversation, be humble, pray, make sure you're actually doing the right thing. And then you might want to just do this. Be quiet. Just be quiet. If you want people to think that you're smart this week, shut up. It's amazing. Look at this, Proverbs 17. Even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. When he shuts his lips, he is considered perceptive. Just by not talking. Just by not talking. And matter of fact, here's another verse. I want you to jot it down. It's not on the outline. Proverbs 26:17. It says this. Like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. Sometimes you folks that are justice people, you want to jump in and defend, and you want to do the right thing. And I'm going to help that situation, even though you might not even know the whole story. And you end up getting yourself in trouble, especially those of you who are like born middle child. You're always trying to make sure everyone's just getting along. And so you're trying to fix all this stuff. Just back off. It's like grabbing, and they didn't have dogs as pets, in the Middle East back then. Grabbing a dog by the ears is like grabbing a jackal by the ears. You're going to get bit. It's going to bite you if you continue to do that. So maybe the best thing you can do is just stay out of it. Be quiet. Proverbs 11:12. It's foolish to belittle one's neighbor. A sensible person keeps quiet. Now, it probably never happens in any of your neighborhoods where one neighbor kind of gets crossways with another neighbor, and so they talk to you about the situation. Probably never. I won't even go into it because it's so ridiculous. It would never happen here. Don't jump into somebody else's conflict. Be quiet. And then maybe just be teachable. If something comes your way that's true, even at times it might be hard to hear it. Proverbs 27:6 says, wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. Maybe the most helpful, loving thing you can hear is a word of correction. Maybe that would be the best thing that someone could tell you. For example, again, I'm in my 20s at this point, and I've taken my first group that I'm leading to Israel. I've been many times, and we've had some great trips, and some of you went with me last time. But this was the first one. So I am on this trip with this great group of people from the church I was at up in the Seattle area, and we get through, and we're done. We're exhausted. We have been just going. Now we're getting ready to get on this plane in Tel Aviv to fly back across the pond. Long flight, awful. I hate that flight. And so I'm getting on, and the stewardess looks at my ticket and said, "Oh, you're the tour director?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, well, we have, whenever there's a tour director and we have space, we'll move you to first class." And I'm like, cha-ching, first class, this is going to be great. I have a bed. And so I go on up to first class, and we get up to, about 35,000 people. I thought, well, I better check on everybody. So I just open the curtains, back where the little people are, and open the curtains. I look back there, and I see a couple of my friends, and I was in my 20s, so I was pretty mature, so I went and closed the curtains and went back to bed. And it was just, wow, this is awesome. I actually deserve and should always fly at this level. But about a month later, my friend Dave, he'd been kind of a mentor, super successful businessman, older than me. He said, "Hey, let's go to lunch." And I said, "That'd be great, So I go out to lunch with Dave, and he said, "Boy, that trip to Israel was awesome. That was fantastic." He said, "That upgrade you got to first class?" I said, "Yeah, baby, that was something. That was so nice." He goes, "Yeah, you completely dropped the leadership ball when you took the first class seat when the rest of your team was in coach. I just want you to know that that was a complete lack of leadership on your part." It's like, oh. And now this is a guy that I know loves me. This is a guy that I know knows what he's talking about when it's subject of leadership. And it just hurt because I knew it was true. And he knew I didn't have a dad that had taught me anything like that. And so he came alongside, and I learned some things. One, don't travel with Dave. But beyond that, I had to learn some hard lessons. But one of the things I was grateful for is that he came to me and talked to me, and not three other people that he could get to agree with him that I'm a jerk, And he helped me grow. Are you teachable? And then be truthful. Don't just tell people what you think they want to hear. Sometimes people can just surround themselves with their entourage, and no one ever stops them and say, don't do that. That's why, often the famous last words of an Arkansas redneck are, "Hold my beer and watch this." Because there's nobody around to say, "No, that's really stupid. Don't do it." Everybody's like going, "Yeah, you go, Billy Bob." And we all can be susceptible to just surrounding ourselves with yes people. If you've got marriage problems and you're thinking, "Well, I'm going to go talk to Sally because she's had 5 husbands and she'll know what to do." Maybe not. Find people who will tell you the truth. And then maybe you need to be the one at times to be truthful. Proverbs 26:28, "A lying tongue hates those it hurts, and a flattering mouth works ruin." So that, be teachable, and then make sure that you're being truthful. Another way that we speak that involves how we speak about each other is found in Proverbs 18. "The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost parts." Oh, did you hear? Did you hear about mango? Oh, yeah. It's bad. Do you want to know more? And we are all susceptible to that, really. And so we want to pass it along because we've got some inside scoop. And we're all susceptible to it. And it's like choice morsels, like, so good. So what do you do, though, when someone comes to you with it? Well, you can either be a lightning rod and ground it, or a cattle prod and pass it on. You see, I want to encourage you to not be a safe person to gossip to. If you're saying, well, I was just listening. Yeah, you're half the problem if you're the listener. Don't be a safe person to gossip to. So when, your coworker comes and says, oh my gosh, I can't believe that guy, you know what he did this time? He did that, and then he said that. And really, well, how did he respond then when you talked to him about it? Oh, I didn't say anything to him. Well, then why are you talking to me? Let's call him. Let's get him on speakerphone right now and just say, hey, I got Bill here in my office, and he said that you did this, that, and the other thing. Why don't you come on in? You do that once or twice, no one will gossip to you again. Don't be a safe person to gossip to, because gossip can end friendships, and it can splinter families. It can divide churches, and it will create a toxic environment on the job. So don't be a part of that. You can do something different. You can actually make a difference. Oh, but my job, I've got no authority. I don't have that kind of role. Believe me, you can make a difference. You can make a difference. In the process, you'll find that you can also be healing. The words that you use can be healing. Especially if you consider, would I say this if that person was standing next to me? I was on a group email where somebody was really angry, and they made a bunch of nasty comments and accusations. And one of the other people on the emailed me and said, this person's full of crap, and this person has done this, and just went off and didn't realize it, but he had pushed reply all. Oh, it was entertaining. It was a mess and fun to watch, but it was ugly. Be careful. And Jesus told us why this happens from time to time in Matthew 12. He said, from the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So maybe you really don't have a tongue problem so much as you have a heart problem, that there is some pain, that there is some patterns that you learned growing up that you have just brought forward. Maybe there's a wound that is causing the words. The good news is that Jesus is in the heart healing business. But we have to recognize our need. We have to offer an open heart to what he would want to do in us, and it'll begin to change the way we communicate, how we use these words. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh text, tweet, or Facebook post stirs up anger. This is so counterintuitive to where our culture is at right now, to say, you know what, don't go there. And you know what, I would encourage you, don't even read them. Just distance yourself from just the mountains of manure that are coming at us through social media. And don't participate. Someone says, yeah, that person's a jerk and an idiot. I like it. Just stay away from it. I just like the heck out of that. You go, anonymous, brave person. Proverbs 15:4. The soothing tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit. We have this power. You see, God spoke and created this universe. We're created in his image and likeness. We have a creative power with our words as well. You are going to create healing and hope. You're going to create an atmosphere around yourself of peace and joy, acceptance, forgiveness, love. You can create that space where you live, where you work, as you're just out and about in this community, whether it's to that wait person, whether it's at the grocery store, whatever it might be. Author Ken Blanchard and Barbara Glanz, they wrote a book, and they tell a story about when Barbara was doing a training for a large supermarket chain, but all the frontline workers, baggers, checkers, counter people. So there's 3,000 people, and she's talking to them about leadership and creating a positive culture. That you can actually do little things, say certain things that help people want to come back to your store. That you're kind of all in this together. And as she was talking about that, she was very well received. But about a month later, one young man called her up and wanted to talk to her. Johnny, 19 years old, and he proudly said, I am a Down syndrome individual. And here's what he said. He said, I liked what you talked about, but at first I didn't think I could do anything special. After all, I'm just a bagger. Then I had an idea. Every night after work, I come home and I find a thought for the day. If I can't find a saying I like, I just think one up. And his dad would help him, and they would put several, here's the thought of the day, and they would repeat it several times on a sheet of paper, and then he would make copies of it and then cut each one out and sign it until he had 300 of these thought for the day for the next day at work. And he said this, when I finish bagging someone's groceries, I put my thought for the day in their bag and say, thanks for shopping with us. Well, a couple months later, he got a call from the manager, got a call from the manager of the store and said, hey, I understand Johnny called you. He told me about it. I got to give you a follow-up on this. I was walking through the store, and there was a line back to the freezer section. I called up more checkers, and then I went into the line and said, hey, we've got more checkers. Nobody would move. They all wanted to stay in Johnny's line. They wanted their thought for the day. And then a couple of months later, the manager called again and said this, Johnny has transformed our store. Now, when the floral department has a broken flower, rather than throwing it away, they find someone and pin it on them in the aisle. The guys corralling the carts make sure the wheels work. The whole culture of the store has changed. It can happen in a grocery store. It can happen in your office. It can happen in a church. And most importantly, it can happen in a home. But it's a deliberate choice. It's a conscious effort. You're creating. No matter which you choose, you're creating, right? You're either creating a space that is tension-filled, or you're creating a space that is at peace. Now, it's never going to be perfect, but we can always work on making it better. What kind of choices do you need to make this week? Maybe it's begin with the heart issue. There's a lot of pain there. There's some old wounds there that I didn't even realize I'm continuing to react to. Jesus is in the business of changing hearts. And what we're going to do before we're dismissed, we're going to sing one last song that'll sort of help kind of be a parenthesis. And I want you to consider your next right steps before we walk out of this room.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. One of the things that I was thinking about while I was listening is when he talks about how the words can crush. And I was thinking, man, how many times have I spoken without thinking, and I probably crushed somebody inadvertently or maybe on purpose, and I've been the worst version of myself. And what I love, reminded of John 3:17, after John 3:16, that God so loved the world, he gave his son that nobody would perish but have eternal life, that Jesus didn't come to condemn the world but to save it. So if you feel a sense of weight, like, man, that hit me right between the eyes, I want you to know that Jesus doesn't want you to carry that weight. He wants you to surrender it to him. It's that simple to say, I don't have what it takes to live that life. And Jesus, I need you in order to have life-giving words. I need a life-giving God. And if you came today and you want to specify that with great clarity on this connection card, there's a box. It's right here, and it just says, today I'm making a decision to begin my new life with Jesus. It's that simple. My team and I, together, we pray for these cards. If you need help and you want somebody to pray for you and you want to do it through the card, we can do that. We can also pray for you back there. But here's my last word of encouragement is don't carry that weight. Jesus paid a great price to carry it for you. The question is, do you want to give that over to him or not? You can do that just by saying, Jesus, I want to surrender these things over to you. Would you give me life through words, through your words, through your life. Would you guys do me a favor? Would you stand together? And my prayer for you is really simple, that Jesus would bring to mind the things in your world that you can apply today through the word that Mike brought. Let's sing together.